And generally, they make the more emotional scenes at the end of the day so you can just go home after because it's a lot to kind of get into and get out of. So, really, just, preserving your energy and keeping yourself in that headspace is really the most difficult part.
Welcome everyone to this exciting interview segment. Today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Ronnie Hope, star of the Lifetime movie Murder at the Derby. Join us as we delve into Ronnie's insights into her character and the challenges of filming this movie. Thank you for being here with us, Ronnie.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, can you tell us a little bit about your character in the Murder at the Derby?
Yes, so Rose is a very sweet girl. She's a horse trainer. She really doesn't come from much. But she's a hard worker. Unfortunately, she did lose her father a while back, and her family's kind of struggling with that loss, emotionally and financially. Um, she works, with the horse races and is kind of building her way throughout that business with training, and got accepted with a very good training program to kind of be shadowing a top trainer.
What drew you to this role, and what unique traits does your character have for you?
What attracted me to this role is the fact that, well, I love that she is so sweet and, she's very family oriented. I also like the fact that she is a horse trainer. I love horses. I ride horses. So it was fun to kind of get to combine these two worlds together for me. I was actually in Bali when I got the call for this role. And I almost debated, oh, do I leave? Because I had this long trip planned, but I was so attracted by the fact that, this is such a fun character and I get to combine my two passions. So that was really exciting for me to get to do.
And how did you prepare for this dramatic and suspenseful role compared to your previous, more light-hearted roles?
Yes. So a lot of my roles that I've done are more lighthearted and comedic. So, a lot of the time I'm not dealing with mystery or murder, or a lot of confrontation, really, in general. Um, so I ask um, the director a lot of the time, what are some projects that or films that, they think kind of represent what we're going to be working on, or what type of characters that they see in different films that kind of show Rose. So it was really just talking to the director and the writer and trying to get a vision of what they see.
Amazing. And what was it like transitioning from the family-friendly comedy to a darker, mysterious thriller?
It's was actually very refreshing for me because, I spent my life in sitcoms, and, I never really got to dive as deep as I would have liked to in, the craft. So it's very nice to be able to be on the other side and, get to do more homework and have to, really push myself um, mentally. And, it really does help me grow as an actor. It's obviously intimidating, heading more into drama, but, I've always wanted to head into this side of the business. So it's very exciting for me.
Great. And were there any emotional challenges or new acting techniques you had to adopt for Murder at the Derby?
I would say the most difficult part of drama are obviously the more emotional scenes from breakups to deaths. I think that, the the action aspect of it is actually pretty easy. Um, or easier, let's say that, just because your heart's racing and there's so much movement involved. It's so easy to put you in that mental space. But when you have to really imagine the character's backstory and what's led to them being in such an emotional place during a breakup or a loss, it's a little bit harder to keep yourself there, especially let's say it's the last scene of the day. So you have to mentally prepare and keep that energy to be able to head into that headspace towards the end of the day. And generally, they make the more emotional scenes at the end of the day so you can just go home after, because it's a lot to kind of get into and get out of. So really just, preserving your energy and keeping yourself in that headspace is really the most difficult part.
I imagine. And could you share a memorable behind the scene moment from the set of Murder at the Derby?
I would say the best like behind the scenes moment is getting to train with the horses because like I mentioned before, I love horses, I love riding, and meeting the cast for the first time. We actually went to the barn and we all got to ride together, and I tried I think three or four different horses. One of them was crazy and just took off with me on top of it. I lost my boots. I like was fighting it like almost around the ring two times. Everyone thought I was going to fall off, but I didn't. But it gave everyone a good scare, and that was my first time meeting everyone. So I would say that's one of the more funny behind the scene moments.
Great. And talking about your career in general, um, you started at a young age.
Mhm.
Uh, how did the passion for acting come about for you?
Well, I really just kind of fell into it. I never, grew up as a young kid and was thinking, wow, I want to be an actor. Um, I heard an ad, one of those type of scams uh, on the television. Oh, do you want to be on Disney? And so I went to one of those meetings and, it was a complete scam, but they gave me a list of agencies. And I asked my mom, hey, do you think we could meet with some of these agencies if they would be willing to? And so she helped me put some pictures together. And I went to Miami and I auditioned for this one agency and they booked me right away and I started working a week later. Eventually, I decided to get into commercials and I didn't really know how to act. So I decided to take some classes to kind of help with that. And a coach from LA came down and was doing a workshop that I decided to join. He was really pleased with my work. So he pulled my parents to the side and said that I should try to head out to LA for pilot season and set up some meetings and try to get representation there. I ended up doing that. And about 6 months later, I went to LA, met with an agency and a manager, and I signed with both. Um, and I never left LA after that, because it was pilot season. I was in the middle of it. So my team was like, you can't go home and pack up. You need to stay here and try to get a job. So my mom went home and packed up my school locker and packed up some clothes for me. And I just stayed there, trained and auditioned. About a year and a half later, I got my first job, which was stuck in the middle.
Oh, great. And did your family come with you or you go alone full
Well,
time?
my dad is a dentist and owns a practice down in Florida, so he couldn't really abandon that. So I went out with my mom and my grandma originally, but then since I had to stay, my grandma stayed with me for a while my mom came home and kind of packed everything up for me, which was really nice of them. They would transition going back and forth till I was about almost 17, and then for the most part, I was by myself.
it was tough for it was
It was tough at first, because I was a kid and I was so used to being in my home with my family, doing ballet and just being in the kind of rhythm of my life. So switching everything entirely was a very hard transition for me, but I was very happy and grateful to be, on that journey. I would say the biggest challenge for me was not knowing anyone and just being really homesick.
oh, I can imagine. And
Yeah.
yeah, and what was the audition process like for Murder Derby? And how did it differ from audition from your other roles, like comedy?
Yeah. Well, most of the time, um, when I first got into the business, all of your auditions were in person. But since COVID happened, now the business has switched entirely, and auditions are mainly in on Zoom, really, or
Oh,
self tapes. So, Disney was a 6 month audition process in and out of casting rooms, all in person.
oh.
Yeah. um, my CW show was entirely in person as well, and that was about a month of auditions. My Netflix show was actually fully remote. They wanted me to fly in and do a chemistry read with the cast, but unfortunately, I was out of town visiting my friend in the Bahamas, so they just kind of had to take my audition tape. But I did two audition tapes remotely for them. For Murder at the Kentucky Derby, I actually did um, a fully remote audition process. As I said, I was in Bali. So I did, um, I think, only one audition tape, maybe two. Um, in my Airbnb. um, so that was kind of funny for me to go through the whole process in Asia.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
actually am filming a movie right now in Italy. And
oh,
yeah,
are you in
it's
Italy now?
no, I just left a week ago. I've been back and forth
Oh,
for the past two
I'm
months.
in Italy
I
now.
know, I know. That's why I wanted to mention it. We've been
Yeah,
all over. We did a week and a half in Venice. We've been all over Tuscany. Um, we've been we've been all over Amalfi. Um, we did as well as Pompeii. Um, we're going to
easy.
be finished. Yeah, it's really exciting. We're going to be finishing up the last leg in LA though in June. But for Murder at the Kentucky Derby, the auditioning process for that was also fully remote. They didn't have me do a chemistry read, so I didn't know any of the other characters until I showed up to set at that barn, like I mentioned before.
Yeah,
As for the project right now that I'm working on, um, it was all remote, and I did a chemistry read with my co-star um, via Zoom. So that was my
oh,
first chemistry read, Zoom, which is very hard to kind of connect to someone
yeah,
and create that chemistry on Zoom right away in front of
yeah,
everyone and not having a moment in the waiting room to be able to just talk and meet. So it's really interesting to see how the industry has shifted so much.
yeah. It has to be really tough for you actors and actors to have a chemistry with a screen that separates you, right?
A- Absolutely. And I think another big part of it is, you get to get in the waiting room and have 10, 15, maybe even 30 minutes to get to talk and know each other, run the lines, create some jokes and really
Yeah,
just kind of get that chemistry going. So when you hop on Zoom, you're in front of everyone and there's no moments alone, which I really think is the hardest part.
yeah, amazing. So another question about your career in general, but talking about your role in Murder at Derby,
Mhm.
how do your previous character influence your portrayal on the new role in? the role of Murder of the Derby?
I would say my previous characters that have really helped kind of shape Rose. I wouldn't say Rachel from Stuck in the Middle really helped at all. She's sweethearted, but she's more sassy, and Rose doesn't really portray any of that. I would say more of my Netflix show and the CW show, how those characters have helped, shape Rose a little bit more. The Netflix show in general, she's more like Rose. She's, lighthearted, sweet. And similar to Rose, she is separated from her parents, and has that emptiness in her and that parental struggle. So that helped shape Rose. Also, for the CW show, you know, um, I don't even remember my character's name, but um, she she was, a very sweet girl to her core, and had some terrible circumstances happen to her, and left that damage in her heart, which helped create the damage for Rose of, that missing father figure, and constantly, fighting an uphill battle, even with work, and the villain in the story for Murder at the Kentucky Derby. So that's how I would say the characters have really helped shape Rose.
That's great. And over the years, you took later before about the auditioning process that changed before and after COVID. How have you seen the television and film industry evolve, and what has that meant for your career?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think the industry has shifted entirely. It's done a complete
Yeah,
180 in my opinion. Um, Truthfully, now because streaming is so large, there is no pilot season anymore. Actors from all over the world would come to LA from the end of January to maybe the beginning of May, and be doing, maybe 2 or 3 auditions a day, trying to get on any pilot that they could. Now pilots are constantly being casted all year long because
yeah,
streaming networks are constantly pushing out new projects. I think projects are also so condensed and so quickly pushed out that it is creating more business for actors. I would say, one of the downfalls of the business right now is they're consistently picking A-listers. And I think they're not leaving room for new talent, which I think, Hollywood could really clean up um, that side of their work.
yeah.
As well as the auditioning process, it's entirely changed. There's nothing done in person really anymore. Everything's done via Zoom or self tapes, which is really hard because I think there's a certain finesse of walking in the room, walking in as the character, shaking hands, and letting them see you in person.
Yeah, it's totally different. Yeah, and you're currently majoring in the broadcast journalism at Santa Monica College, right?
Oh my goodness, it's been some time since I kind of talked about my schooling. I've actually switched schools now. I'm schooling now in Florida, and I switched a while ago to psychology. I thought it would just really help my acting. So I've been a psychology major for some time now.
Oh, okay, great. And with such a demanding schedule, from auditions and long on-set hours to studying, how do you maintain balance between work and personal life? I ask
Yeah.
this to all the actors and actors so we can relate more with you and with your life.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everybody has a job, right? So everybody is constantly fighting the battle of, oh, I'm going to work and now I'm tired after work. Do I work out? Do I cook? Do I hang out with friends and maintain a social life? Everybody's dealing with that struggle. So I don't think actors are anything special. Um, I would say it's almost easier for actors because most aren't constantly working from project to project to project. So there's a lot of downtime or hiatuses in between seasons, right? So, in the middle of filming, it is a little bit harder, especially with projects that I've been recently doing because films are so condensed and I'm out of town filming a lot of the time. So you're working sometimes 6 days a week. So really when I am filming, there is no social life. It's just workout, food, and filming. On the
Yeah.
weekends, if we do have some time, I try to hang out with the cast and get to know them, and create a relationship with these people that I get such a short amount of time with. But generally, in between filming, I am just a student.
Oh, great. Yeah, amazing. And talking about moving to LA at a young age, as you said before, this must have been challenging. In what ways has that sacrifice paid off, and what have you missed most about home?
Yeah. Um, well, I think one of the biggest challenges, like I said before, was really just being homesick and missing my family. And then eventually, when I got to the age of high school, I started really feeling like, oh, am I missing out on, you know, homecomings and football games, and really just the normality of being a kid and getting to do sports and ballet and hang out with a lot of other kids. I was lucky enough to be able to go to, I think, like 3 or 4 proms. So that was fun getting to at least have that experience. Um, I would say just missing my family was the biggest challenge for me, because I moved out so young, and I was, then living by myself by the age of almost 17,
Yeah,
that it was difficult, finding my footing and learning how to cook and clean and, be an adult at such a young age. Also, while working crazy hours, and if not working, doing publicity or fittings or, you know, auditions. I would say it definitely has paid off in the sense of, creating a career for me and getting to live such a different life and see things that, um, not a lot of people really get to experience. And I'm incredibly grateful to have done the things that I have done and live the life that I have. Um, I would say that it has shaped me to be who I am. I don't know if I would be the same person without growing up in the industry.
great. And what do you find the most challenging about working in television today, and how do you overcome those challenges?
I would say television today is, it's the same filming, the schedules, it's really generally the same process. The auditioning is really the only difference. I think it's different for post-production because they're now being pushed at such condensed timelines that they're really dealing with the brunt of it. As an actor, I'm really not dealing with anything different. um,
Mhm.
I would say as an actor, um, for a character throughout filming, is the difficult challenge is trying to find an arc for a character, because in a movie, a character starts as someone and ends as someone entirely different. In a TV show, you really maintain the same mentality as the character. So really trying to find places to find an arc for your character and have them grow is one of the biggest challenges.
Amazing. And a little bit advising for young actors and actresses.
Mm,
What advice would you give to young aspiring actors or actresses who are just starting out in this world?
yeah, I would say, if you're thinking of getting in the industry, you need to do some self reflection and really decide A, if you want to have your entire life be in front of the world, and everyone be watching you with a microscope, and B, um, you got to be tough. You got to be able to deal with a ton of rejection. You're going to deal with 300 no's and critiques before you get a single yes. And even then, when your work gets out and you are entirely proud of something, the world is still going to have their opinion on it. And, there's going to be good and there's going to be bad. So you have to deal with constant rejection, and you need to know that that's what's going to be, your future. But, that's not to say don't get in the industry. It's a wonderful industry. It's great. It's different. It's fun. Every day is different. And that's one of my favorite parts about it. Um, you just have to keep pushing, keep taking classes, keep learning new techniques. Don't give up.
Amazing. And I think um, you speak about yourself in this advice, right? And what strategies do you use to cope with the rejection and maintaining your passion?
Really, what's helped me cope with the rejection is entirely kind of stepping out of the business. I don't really focus on the business anymore. I have an entirely different life outside the business. I think leaving Hollywood and just stepping away from it has really helped. If I get an audition, then, I'm back in business, I'm working on focus, and, I use everything that I've learned for the auditioning process. I think that really just having a separate life outside of the business and not being so mentally wrapped into it helps with the rejection, because it hurts a little bit more when that's your everything, right? You have to have your independence and freedom outside of the business. I think you should always stay conscious of that.
Amazing. So the last question about for today. Can you share any hints or details about the next steps in your acting career? And are there any specific genre or types of characters you are excited to explore?
Yeah. Like I mentioned before, I'm currently working on a movie in Italy. And so I have been filming um, that role right now. Oh my goodness, I called my other character we've been talking about Rose. I'm working on Rose right now. I'm in that headspace. My character in Murder at the Kentucky Derby is Kara.
Yeah,
Um,
great.
so it's really, I've just been in the headspace of Rose and filming on this project right now. I would say one of my dream projects is doing any type of period piece. I love the 60s. I love anything 1800s, Renaissance-esque. I think that would be super fun. Um,
Yeah,
that's kind of my next goals. Um, that's really it for me right now. I've been doing a lot of traveling right now, so that's kind of what I've been doing outside of the business.
amazing. Where where did you stay after Italy?
I did
For
stay the
traveling, I mean.
Yeah, I did stay actually the after the first leg, and I went skiing with my brother in the Dolomites. I'm a avid skier. And I normally go once or twice a season. And it was my first time getting to ski in the Alps, which was super fun.
Amazing. So this is it. And thank you for being here today with us, Ronnie. And for all our viewers, remember to coach with Murder at the Derby the next Sunday night on Lifetime Channel. Lifetime Channel. Thank you again,
Thank you so much.
and thank you all for watching. Bye.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.
For me too.
Bye.